J. Krishnamurti, at the outset of his life's work some 40 years ago, said that his only concern was to set men absolutely, unconditionally free. In his talks, Krishnamurti is asking for a particular kind of participation on the part of the audience. He is not giving a predetermined lecture to which the audience listens with agreement or disagreement. He is not presenting a point of view. He is not doing propaganda for an idea, belief, or dogma, or leading the audience to a particular conclusion. Instead, the speaker and listeners together are exploring human problems. Krishnamurti was born in South India. At the age of 16, he was brought to England, where he was privately educated. He began to speak along his present lines in 1929, when he repudiated all connections with organized religions and ideologies. Since that time, Krishnamurti has continued to travel the world, writing, speaking, and discussing. He is the author of many books, among them The Urgency of Change, Freedom from the Known, The Flight of the Eagle, and You Are the World. The following talk was given at Ojai, California on April 8, 1972.
I don't know if you have noticed that in a little town like this, or a city or village, I don't know what you call it, that there are so many little churches, so many different myths, so many different fanciful religious conceptions, formulas, that divide the people. And it is the same all over the world. Go to any little village or town or city in Europe, it is the same. Christianity divided in itself, exotic religions, myths that have gone on for many centuries that are dying now, and new myths are being formed. And go to India or Asia, it is the same. All broken up, divided, each individual seeking a particular fancy, myth, a religious concept or a belief or a dogma according to his own particular temperament, neuroticism, or fanciful, hopeful belief. And when one considers all this, wisely, watchfully watching all this, one wonders what will bring humanity together. Not obviously belief, not obviously a particular formula over which we can quarrel, differ, argue dialectically, or accept some leader, some guru, some exotic mythological exportation. And when one can say that the world, that is, the human beings, are divided religiously, nationally, politically, economically, and in every way possible, each one almost against another. There are revolts, black against the white and the purple against the blue and so on. And when you wonder, looking at all this extraordinary phenomena that's going on in the world, one wonders what will bring man together? What will bring about a right relationship between human beings so that we all can live peacefully? Because it is our earth, not the Christian earth or the earth of the oil people or the earth of the businessman or the earth of a Catholic, Protestant, Wesleyan, and God knows what else. And when you look at this, the long hair, the short hair, the hippie and the non-hippie, the businessman, the artist, the priest, the various meditative groups, each asserting their own particular form of meditation path, or their belief or dogma will lead to a particular experience and realization and so on. Looking at it, any serious man, I mean by that word who is a man who is completely committed to the resolution of the problem that divides human beings and hoping to bring the people together, not belonging to any particular group, committed to any particular action. To such a serious man, what is the answer? You know, if I may point out, this is not an entertainment. This morning, sitting together here, we are not entertaining each other. We are not being amused or intellectually stimulated. We are, I hope, serious people concerned with a devastating world, with the horrors that are going on in the world, the pollution, the overpopulation, the economic expansion that is going to destroy the world. And if you are at all serious, and I deeply hope that you are, not wanting to be entertained, but wanting to find out what is the right action, what to do as a human being living in this terrible world, in this world of tremendous sorrow, destruction, violence, then perhaps you and I can take a journey into this enormous, complex problem of human existence and its relationship to another. Now, when you look at all this, not from any particular point of view, as an American, as a Catholic, or a Protestant, as a socialist or a socialite, or belonging to any particular group, as a human being concerned, not trying to solve it according to a particular concept, formula, but observing this. One sees that thought is responsible for this. Thought, which has done extraordinary things in this world, technologically, scientifically, economically, thought has produced extraordinary results. The building of a marvelous bridge across a wide river, going to the moon. And also thought has done terrible things. All the destructive instruments of war, the dividing of the people, so on one hand you see that thought, the whole machinery of thinking, has produced extraordinary world of technology, comfort, so-called civilization. And also it has brought about terrible results. This division amongst people. Nationally, economically, religiously, and so on. Thought is responsible for the division of man. And there are many who say thought must be killed. There are many who say that act spontaneously, without thought. There are many who say, as thought is always conditioned, let us condition that thought better, as the communists, as the latest psychologists, and others. That is, thought in its action is responsible for behavior. Whether that behavior be violent, pleasant, beautiful, or ugly. Thought is responsible for human behavior. And there are many who are maintaining, who are asserting, controlling, shaping the human mind according to a particular conditioning. The communists, the Mao, and so on. And thereby hope to bring about a right, cooperative action, so that the terrible things that we do to each other can come to an end. I hope we're all following this. As I said, we are taking a journey together. And we are sharing together what we see on that journey. And to share together, we must both be intensively aware, not only of what is going on in the world outwardly, but also what's going on inwardly. Sharing implies that we meet at the same time, at the same level, with the same intensity. Otherwise, there is no sharing. And we are neither disagreeing or agreeing. We are neither accepting this formula or that formula, or this opinion or that opinion. Together, we are examining, investigating, exploring the outward phenomena as well as the inward process of our own existence. They are both important. And this movement of the inner as well as the outer is what we are going to examine together, share together, and see if we can during these two talks, which I doubt very much, but doesn't matter, whether we can understand and therefore resolve this division that exists between human beings, which is the very cause of all conflict, both outwardly and inwardly. Inwardly, we are fragmented, broken up. Outwardly also. And in exploring and examining what's going on. We must, it seems to me, not only aware, but also be able to see clearly. So we have to understand together what we mean by observing, seeing the world outwardly with all the horrors, with all the beautiful things, the wars, the pollution outwardly, and inwardly, the conflict, the struggle, the constant battle. To see it clearly. And what does it mean to see clearly? To observe. I think it's very important to understand that thing, what it means to observe. One observes, doesn't one, through one's own image that one has built up, either hereditary or personally, according to one's own particular temperament, idiosyncrasy, and so on. That is, when you look at a tree, There's so many lovely trees here. When you look at those trees, you look through the image you have of that tree. You please try it, look at it. You will see that what you observe the tree through the botanical knowledge you have acquired. You look at that tree, naming it, liking it or disliking it. So you are looking through an image and not looking at the tree directly. To observe an outward thing, like a tree or the mountain or a bird, or the flight of an eagle, is comparatively easy. But to observe, to see what's going on inwardly, it becomes much more difficult. Please, as we are talking, do it. Not merely listen to a series of words or ideas and then walk away from it. But if you actually are experimenting with what is being said now, then you will see how, when you look at yourself as you are, you have not only the images that have been handed to you through tradition, through the past, but also you are looking at yourself through various images that you have created about yourself. So you never observe actually what is. You're always observing with the eyes of what should be, or observing through a formula, through a belief, through an ideology, or through various forms of conditioning. So it becomes extremely difficult to observe oneself actually, to observe actually what is. And as we're going to investigate together this phenomenon of human conflict and division, it becomes extraordinarily important, if you're at all serious, to find out for oneself the act of observation. Because if you observe with your traditional outlook, with your conditioned responses, as a Catholic, as a Protestant, as a God knows what else, the innumerable divisions that each one of us have created, then you are actually not seeing at all. You're seeing the image which you want to see through the image which you have created. And such a mind that I'm trying to observe is incapable of bringing about a radical revolution in itself. Because psychological revolution is necessary, far more important than the physical revolution, than the economic revolution or social revolution. psychological revolution, a total transformation of the mind and the heart is necessary, because that is the root cause of any outward phenomenon change. If there is no deep, radical change in oneself as a human being, whatever you do outwardly will be conditioned by your inward state. If you are inwardly confused, dead, conditioned, narrow, shoddy, little human being, whatever you do outwardly will produce a shoddy society, a corrupt society. And we give tremendous importance to outward changes. We want outward changes. There must be a total change outwardly, socially. That's fairly obvious. The end of war, the end of poverty, the outward division of human beings into nationalities, into sovereign governments, and so on. Outwardly, there must be a deep, radical change. Because, as the scientists are also saying, that if we are going on as we are, expanding economically, polluting the earth, the seas and the air, overpopulation and so on, in about 70 years, will destroy the earth and ourselves. So there must be, at all, if you're at all serious, gone into this very, very deeply, trying to solve this problem, not according to Lenin, Trotsky, or Stalin, or Mao, or some latest psychologist, but if you're, as a human being, going into this problem deeply to find out how to resolve this, then you will find, as you see, that there must be in each human being a radical psychological revolution. The two, the outward and inward movement must go together. And the inward movement is far more important than the outer. I think that's fairly clear. And to bring about this deep inward revolution at the very depth of one's consciousness, one must have the eyes to look at ourselves very clearly. And you cannot possibly look. If you are looking through the eyes of a particular psychologist or a particular formula, if you are a communist, socialist, oh Lord, and all the rest of it, you cannot possibly look. I think again that's fairly clear and simple. It's only the man that who is not committed, who is free to look, who is not held by a particular opinion or a particular knowledge or a particular experience. It's only such a person can observe actually what is. And when you observe, thought becomes the central factor. Thought, which is the response of knowledge, experience, memory, and that thought scientifically and so on has created an extraordinary world, and thought also has created the various gods and saviors and myths. You are a Christian because you have been conditioned that way, which is the result of thought being conditioned in a particular culture according to particular religious dogmas, beliefs, rituals. As in India, as in Asia, they do exactly the same thing. Only there it is called Hinduism, Buddhism, or Islam. Here it's called Christianity. But it's the same phenomenon. Which divides people. And where there is division, not only outwardly, but also inwardly, there must be conflict. Right? Is that clear? Do we go on together from there? Because, sirs, in a beautiful valley like this, and it is one of the most beautiful valleys in the world, to live here and to see this beauty and to know this beauty will be destroyed by human beings because they want to expand. They want more money, more pleasure, more everything. And the earth is being destroyed. By our stupidity, by our greed, by our desire for greater pleasure. And thought, if it's not very clearly understood, is going to bring about our disaster. So, we see what thought is and how important thought is. One cannot possibly exist without thinking. You cannot function normally, easily, without thought. To go to your house, to your home, to take the bus, the train, the airplane, you must have the capacity to think. So knowledge at one level becomes essentially important. But that very knowledge can be used to create division amongst people. thought functions naturally, effectively, completely when the me, which is another function of thought, intervenes in the practical knowledge. Is this all Greek to you? We are going together. Look, sir, we need knowledge of the world, of the seas, of the air, scientific and so on. We need that. But also, thought has created the idea of the me who is different from you. Thought has divided the world as you and me, we and they. And when the me operates, functions in the field of knowledge, then it creates mischief, right? That is, how is the mind to function efficiently and truly in the field of knowledge and keep the me, the ego, the person, the individual, the little entity that's making all the trouble in the world, to keep that entity completely out of operation in the field of knowledge. You've got what I'm talking about? Am I making myself clear? You're going at the end of the talk, I hope you're going to ask questions, so I'll go on. I do not know if you have not noticed how terribly selfish we are. How terribly egocentric our activities are. And unless there is a radical change in this activity, you cannot possibly create a new world. And therefore, the ideologists have said, as that me cannot possibly be changed, let thought, which creates the me, identify itself with the greater, which is God, which is the state, which is the nationality, which is a particular ideology, so that the me doesn't come in to interfere with action. So ideologies have become extraordinarily important in order to prevent the particular me from acting. You understood? The me that creates mischief in the world, that is perpetually seeking pleasure, the me that's frightened, guilty, frustrated, anxious, and no religion, no society has solved that problem. They have transferred the me into heaven, sitting next to God or being saved and so on, so on, so on. But the me still continues. So they have not solved it. Religions, culture, or any particular social activity. They are trying to solve it communistically. They say state is important, not you. Serve the state, serve the people. And if you don't, you are either sent to Siberia, sent to mental hospitals, or liquidated. When the pressure of threat is removed, the me will come into operation again. So, when you see all this, see clearly, not with blurred eyes, not with hoping to solve it. Because then if you can't solve it, you fall into despair. You get depressed. But when you see it actually as it is, and I hope we are doing it now, then we are going to find out, ask ourselves the question, how can thought function most efficiently, objectively, all the time without the me? Can the me be totally resolved? Can the me, the ego, the person, the individual who wants to express himself and therefore unfulfilled, miserable, unhappy, egotistic, can that me come to an end? Knowing that the human beings throughout the ages have tried in different ways to resolve this question. The worship of God, through the identification with a particular ideology, the me to be put aside through the family, through a community, through a commune, through a state. We have tried every way. Suppress it, control it, discipline it, destroy it. Every way we have tried. And we have not been able to do it. And in this country, the me has become extraordinarily important. Because if you have observed in this affluent society, everyone is seeking greater pleasure, more and more and more pleasure, which is the pursuit of me. And when that pleasure is thwarted, there is violence, anger, frustration. And this sense of search for pleasure is spreading right through the world. So as we're saying, human beings have tried in every way to dissolve this me. And they have not succeeded. Perhaps there is another way to come upon this. And we are going to investigate a different approach to this problem. You understand? That is, where there is conflict, there is division. inwardly, outwardly. Where there is harmony, there is no conflict. Now, what brings about division? Inwardly as well as outwardly. Because if this division can be resolved, conflict comes to an end, surely. Division as contradiction, self-contradiction, division that is comparative, comparing oneself with another, and therefore, in that comparison, there is conflict. You're following all this? Where there is a measurement, which is comparison, between me and another, there is division. And where there is division, there is conflict. That is, when I compare myself with you, you being more intelligent, more bright, more this and that, then there is division in me, and that division becomes aggressive, feels inferior, becomes angry, competitive in order to be like you. So this division inwardly brings about conflict. Right? Now, do you see this? Or do you see it as a verbal description? You understand my question? Am I making myself clear? Do you see it actually for yourself without the verbal image which the speaker has created for you, and through that image you see it? Or do you see it directly with non-verbally? If you see it directly non-verbally, then your action is instantaneous. Look, sir, if you see a danger, you act instantly, don't you? If you see a rattler, there is action. That action has been brought about through the conditioning that all rattlers are poisonous, right? Or dangerous. So your conditioned response is to act instantly in front of danger, right? And your conditioned response is that the ego, the me, must fulfill, must act, must divide. That's your conditioned response. The me is very important to you. And your whole culture is based on that. So, you don't see the danger of your conditioning, right? You see the danger of a snake because of your condition, because thousands of generations have said, be careful of snakes. They're dangerous. And thousands of generations have said, the me is very important. But you don't see the danger of this conditioning as the me that's important. You get it? In one In one direction, the conditioning warns you against danger, and another conditioning says, continue though it is dangerous. Is this clear and simple? Now, do you see it? Or do you see it merely as an intellectual theory, or as an idea to be accepted? Or do you translate what you see according to your fancy, agreeing or disagreeing? Or do you see it actually as a tremendous danger? If you see it as a danger, life becomes extraordinarily simple. Because all our conditioning is based on this. That the mind must be conditioned in order to function in human behavior properly. And for generations, mind has been conditioned in the idea that the me is all important. And the mind, being so conditioned, does not see how dangerous it is. You've got this? Because as we said, where there is division, there must be conflict. You may tolerate this conflict. You may say, well, that is human nature, to be in conflict. And through conflict, through tension, you will produce various forms of literature. And through this tension, this contradiction, what you produce is called creativity. And is it creative? Or it is the result of a destructive mind? So it becomes all important to find out for yourself, if you're at all serious, how you observe. Whether you observe the me as an outsider looking in, observing the me as from a superior self. You're following all this? And therefore accepting division. Or do you see this whole phenomenon as a whole movement, non-verbally? Therefore, when you see it non-verbally, non-ideologically, then you are in direct contact with that which is dangerous. Therefore, you act immediately, not in a future date. And that's one of our conditioning, which is we accept a gradual process of action. That is, we say to ourselves, I will change later, gradually. It's impossible to change instantly. The churches, the religions, the psychologists, the analysts accept this. You can't change it instantly. You must have time. You must have time to go to heaven. But in the meantime, sow the seeds of mischief. So you accept that as part of your culture, which induces laziness, wastage of energy, and destructive activity all the time. So the question becomes extraordinarily important to ask whether you can bring about a change instantly in yourself psychologically. And as you see, it can be done instantly. When you see danger, the danger of this division between man and man created by thought, which is the me. So when asked, can one live in this world without the me? Do you understand my question? The me that is ambitious, the me that's competitive, the me that's pursuing everlastingly the pleasure through power, status, money, sex. We're not saying that you mustn't seek pleasure. To observe the phenomenon of pleasure, what is involved in it. You know, there is a great difference between pleasure, enjoyment, and joy. When you see a beautiful thing, there is complete enjoyment of that beauty. When you see the mountains in the evening light, there's great delight, there's great full enjoyment of the beauty of that light on that hill. But when that enjoyment is pursued by thought, wanting it to be repeated tomorrow, then it becomes pleasure. As you do sexually. And pleasure has nothing whatsoever to do with joy. It comes naturally, unexpectedly, fully. But when it comes and gone, thought picks it up and says, I must pursue that. I must have joy. And therefore it becomes pleasure. So when you see all this clearly, without any choice, for choice exists only when there is confusion. When you see clearly that the beauty of this valley must be kept as beautiful, there is no choice. You do everything to keep it. elect the right person, and so on, so on, so on. It's only when you are confused, not clear, then you choose. And out of that choice, you create conflict. So it is great importance to see clearly, without any distortion. And there is distortion when there is the me which divides. Right. Now, would you care to ask questions? Just a minute, sir. Just a minute. Take a breath. You know, to ask a question, not only of the speaker, but to ask a question of yourself and to put the right question. To put the right question. If you put the right question, you get the right answer. If you put the wrong question, of course, there is no answer to it. So it's very important to put the right question and to find out why you put that question. Because in the very asking of the right question, there is a right answer. And whom are you asking the question? Are you asking the question, putting the question to the speaker to get the answer? Or are you putting the question in order to investigate together? If you are putting the question in order to investigate together, we are sharing together the question, which means a question shared means that that is an intense question. That's a problem. And sharing implies, as we pointed out, that you must be at the same level, at the same time, with the same intensity. Otherwise, the question has no meaning. You can't share it. All this doesn't prevent you from asking the question, please. But to find out for yourself deeply why you are asking the question, with superficial, casual, or real question that demands action out of your own heart and mind. Right, let's proceed. Just a minute, sir. The bells are louder. Sir, can you listen to those bells without verbalizing it? Just to listen to the sound. Not that it's Catholic, Protestant church, or this or that, but just to listen to the beauty of a sound. Right, sir. Have you, some of you probably are practicing what is called transcendental meditation, aren't you? Some of you? That is, through repetition of a mantra, which is the sound, float off into something. We won't go into this whole question of meditation, perhaps we will tomorrow morning. Sound has extraordinary importance. After all, music is sound. To hear something very clearly, without any interpretation, without any distortion, is a marvelous thing. To hear another speak and to listen to it without any interpretation, then you're in direct relationship with that speaker. Perhaps some of you this morning listened without interpreting, without comparing, without saying whether he's contradicting himself or this or that, actually listening, without any image between you and the speaker. Then you will see that if you listen so intently, then you are listening, and that act of listening absolves all problems. Now, sir, what was the question? Yes, sir. No, you asked the question. I thought you'd forgotten it.
No, that was just because of
Right.
the question that I wished to ask was that as I sit here today listening to you, I get the feeling that you are, as I say, emphatic, that you want us to get what you have to say. You want us to understand what it is you're attempting to communicate. There is something inside you, and me perhaps, that wishes to get this message across. You have a motivation, you have an inspiration, you have a drive inside you that makes you want to come here today, that makes you want to sit here and speak to us, that makes you want to communicate with us. Where do you stand in relationship to that me?
You come this morning, the questioner says, with a motive. You want us to understand something of what you are saying. So it becomes a motive. You are emphatic in what you want to say. What is the relationship between that motive and the me in me? Right. First of all, what do we mean by communication? The word to commune means to share, to think together, to create together, to be on the same level, at the same moment, with the same intensity, otherwise you cannot understand what is being said. That's what the word communication means. If you look up in a dictionary, you will find it. Now, the question is, what is the relationship or the communication between the motive that makes you come here this morning and the me that you must have in coming? Is that the question, sir? Yes, that's the question. Now, why did I come this morning? What is the motive? First of all, is there a motive? Motive, the word motive means to move forward, move. What made me move to come here? Now, if I came here, if the speaker came here this morning in order to feel exhilarated, gather from talking to you a certain form of energy, that is, exploit you for himself, you're following all this? Then that becomes a particular kind of motive. That is, in addressing you, the speaker gets satisfaction, then it must be a motive. But if the speaker has no desire or no intention of gathering strength or excitement or energy from talking, then there is no motive in that, is there? You're following all this? I didn't come to exploit you. The speaker is not here in order to derive certain kind of thrill for himself in talking to people. That would be exploitation. Right? So, it is not for that kind of motive he has come. Then, why has he come? And who is asking this question? You sitting there saying, why have you come? What is the reason of taking all this trouble and addressing us? What's the point of it? Would you ask that question if you saw a beautiful flower? Would you say, why do you exist? What is your motive? Why are you so beautiful? What lovely scent you have? Would you ask that question? You wouldn't, would you? You would just look. You would say how beautiful, how lovely. Then what you look at is your own beauty. That's all. You've understood the answer? Right?
Sir, would you share with us some of your feelings when you observe a tree?
Some of my feelings.
Your feelings when you observe a tree?
Would you share with us some of your feelings when you observe a tree, when you observe a mountain, when you observe the movement of a bird or the light on the water, or a face that is really beautiful with a smile? What's your feeling? Share it with us, the gentleman asked. I really don't know, but we'll try. First of all, when you observe a tree, You're not identifying yourself with the tree. Identification with something is another phenomenon of separation, right? I identify myself with you because I am separate from you. I identify myself with God or with an idea or with some beauty because I am not beautiful. I identify myself with that. Now, when I look at a tree, when the speaker looks at a tree, there is no identification with the tree. He doesn't become the tree, thank God. Right? That would be absurd if he became the tree. No? So there is no identification. Then when you observe non-verbally, what takes place? Which is non-verbally implying without an image. Right? I'm going to this very deeply. You're going to face this yourself presently. What takes place between the observer and the observed? If the observer is full of images, then the thing observed has no relationship with the observer, right? You're getting complicated. If there is an observer as the thinker, then there is a division between the observer and the observed. That's clear, isn't it? Right, sir? Now, can you observe the tree without the observer? The observer being the image, the knowledge, the verbal statement that is an oak. That is, can you observe a tree without any image? Then what takes place? There is a perception of the tree which you have never seen before. There is a communication, sharing with the tree, the beauty of the tree, the shape of the tree, the leaf, the light of the sun on a particular leaf. You follow, you see the totality of it without division, which is a totally different feeling from taking a drug which destroys the separation between you and the tree. We won't go into that. Now, let's move a little further. When you observe your friend, your wife, or your husband, or your boy or girl, how do you observe? Don't you observe with an image? The image that you have built about her or him, don't you? Huh? Obviously. Then what takes place? Then there is division between you and the person whom you are observing. So you never see the person at all. You're only seeing the person through the image that you have about that person. Haven't you noticed this phenomenon between a husband and wife, between people who have known each other for some time? You are looking at that person through the image that you have built for during the period of 20 or 5 or even a day. So you are never in communication with that person. So, You can be related or in communication with another only when there is no image being formed. You know, it's quite an arduous task, this. Especially when you are living with somebody day after day, not to create an image about that person. When you say, I know that person, you mean you know or you have not known or knew him 10 days or 10 years ago. You don't know him as he is now. Right? So, where there is an image, there must be division. And where there is an image, there can not be any communication between you and another. And that's why our relationship with each other is so rotten. That's why we're perpetually quarreling. That's why if you have an image about reality, between truth, about God, about the immeasurable, then there is a division between you and that. Yes. Oh, yes, just a minute, sir. That's a matter of, sir, that's not important. That's not important, surely. Yes, sir. I have no choice in being born. I have no choice in dying. I have no choice in all the problems that exist. Why am I burdened with all these problems? Right, sir? That's the question, isn't it? The world is not my creation, and I am not insensitive to the world. So what is the question, sir?
Why existence at all?
Ah. Why do I exist at all? The fact is that you do exist, which is far more important to understand your existence than why you exist. I exist, you exist, the world exists. The world is me, I am the world. That's it. No, if you once understand this, not verbally, but actually feel it, know it, understand it, that you are the world, because you have created the world. Through your greed, through your ambition, through your competition, through your envy, through your violence, through your desire to fulfill, to, all the rest of it. You have made this world. You, your parents, your grandparents, the culture, you have made this world. And if you say, well, I am not responsible for it, but my grandmother is, it is no meaning. We are responsible for it. And therefore, being responsible, we have to resolve it. We have to do something about it. Not just say we are the world and just sit back. So, to see what the world is to see ourselves. And in the understanding of ourselves, we'll resolve the problems of not only of a human being, but of the world. Let's go. Understand, sir? I want to listen to you, and that's why I came this morning. But my mind can't sustain a long period through which I can listen. It wanders off. What am I to do? Is that it? Don't do anything. No, please listen. If your mind wanders off, let it wander. Which means you're really not interested in listening. But if you say, well, I want to listen, and yet it wanders off, then you create conflict. You understand, sir? Let it wander off. Look at the tree. When you do look at the tree, look at it. Look at it with all your being. And you can't sustain to look at the tree with all your being for a half an hour. So your mind wanders off, thinks about, I don't know, tennis. Then think about it. Don't say, I mustn't think, I must listen. So when you want to listen, listen as long as you can, completely, fully. And when the thought goes off to something else, watch that too. So that there is no conflict whatsoever. It's only the mind that's completely without conflict is a creative mind. That's enough, sir.